You can't fix what was never broken, yet that's exactly what the world tells us to do, to fix ourselves, perfect ourselves, to constantly become something more. We're told to optimize our mornings, hack our productivity, upgrade our mindsets, transform our bodies, rewire our brains. There's always another level to reach, another version of ourselves waiting just beyond the horizon. But what if you're already enough, right now, as you are? What if the very pursuit of becoming better is what's keeping you from peace? Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. This channel is a space for reflection, for slowing down, for questioning the noise. We're pushing close to 200 subscribers now, and I'm genuinely grateful for each one of you. Every person who chooses to spend their time here, listening to these ideas, is helping build something meaningful. If this resonates with you, I'd love for you to subscribe and join us on this journey. Let's explore these questions together. Today, we're talking about the myth of self-improvement. Not to dismiss growth or learning. Those are beautiful parts of being human, but to examine the shadow side of our obsession with constant betterment. The exhausting treadmill of never being quite good enough. The quiet suffering that comes from believing you're a project that needs fixing. Because somewhere along the way, self-improvement stopped being about genuine growth and became another form of self-rejection. Let's start with a number. The global self-improvement market is worth over $43 billion. $43 billion spent annually on books, courses, apps, seminars, and coaches, all promising to help us become better versions of ourselves. And that number keeps growing. We're living in the golden age of optimization, where every aspect of life can be measured, tracked, and improved. Your sleep score, your step count, your productivity metrics, your meditation streak. On the surface, this seems positive. Who wouldn't want to grow, to learn, to evolve? But here's the paradox. Despite having more self-help resources than any generation in history, we're also more anxious, more depressed, and more dissatisfied than ever before. Studies show that rates of anxiety and depression have been climbing steadily, particularly among young people. Social media usage correlates with decreased self-esteem and increased feelings of inadequacy. We're drowning in advice about how to be happy, yet happiness feels more elusive than ever. What's going on? The answer might be simpler than we think. We've confused growth with worthiness. We've made peace conditional on achievement. We've turned our lives into endless projects and ourselves into problems that need solving. The Stoics understood this trap 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say you need to become stronger, smarter, or more disciplined. He said you already have power. The strength is already there. You just need to realize it. Epictetus, who spent much of his life as a slave before becoming one of history's most influential philosophers, taught that our suffering comes not from our circumstances, but from our judgments about our circumstances. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This isn't about positive thinking or forcing yourself to be happy. It's about recognizing that you're already equipped to handle life. You don't need to become someone else first. Seneca put it even more directly. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. How much of our self-improvement obsession is really just suffering in imagination? Imagining a future version of ourselves who's finally worthy, finally at peace, finally enough, and then feeling inadequate because we're not there yet. Now, let's travel east. Buddhist philosophy offers a similar insight, though it comes from a different angle. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and attachment, including attachment to the idea of a better self. In Buddhism, there's a concept called dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more accurately understood as dissatisfaction or unease. It's that persistent feeling that something isn't quite right, that life would be better if only things were different. Sound familiar? The self-improvement industry runs on dukkha. It sells the promise that if you just buy this course, read this book, follow this routine, then you'll finally feel complete. But here's what the Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree. The problem isn't that you're not good enough. The problem is believing that you need to be different than you are. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher and author of the Tao Te Ching, wrote, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." This is the paradox at the heart of genuine transformation. Real change doesn't come from self-rejection. It comes from self-acceptance. When you stop fighting against yourself, when you stop treating yourself as a problem to be solved, that's when authentic growth becomes possible. Not because you need to grow, but because you're free to. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Does the idea of accepting yourself as you are feel liberating, or does it feel like giving up? Voice your thoughts down below. Everyone's opinion deserves to be heard, and these conversations help all of us think more deeply. Let's get practical for a moment. How did we get here? How did self-improvement become self-rejection? Part of it is cultural. Western society, particularly American culture, has always celebrated the self-made person. The idea that you can reinvent yourself, that your past doesn't define you, that anyone can achieve anything with enough effort. These are powerful narratives, and they're not entirely wrong, but they come with a shadow. If success is always possible, then failure becomes a personal flaw. If you can be anything, then being yourself isn't enough. Social media has amplified this exponentially. We're constantly exposed to curated versions of other people's lives, their achievements, their transformations, their highlight reels. A study published in the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology found that limiting social media use to 30 minutes per day led to significant reductions in loneliness and depression. Why? Because we stopped constantly comparing ourselves to impossible standards. Every time you scroll, you're bombarded with messages about who you should be. Fitter, more successful, more productive, more mindful, more authentic. The irony is thick. Even authenticity has become a performance, another thing to achieve. The self-help industry, for all its good intentions, often feeds this cycle. It identifies a problem. You're not productive enough, not confident enough, not happy enough, and then sells you the solution. But here's the trick. The solution often creates a new problem. You buy a course on productivity, which gives you more tasks to complete, which makes you feel less productive. You read a book about happiness, which makes you hyper-aware of all the ways you're not happy. You start a meditation practice to find peace, then stress about whether you're meditating correctly. It's exhausting, and it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be human. Here's what the ancient wisdom traditions understood that we've forgotten. You are not a machine to be optimized. You're not a project to be completed. You're a living, breathing, ever-changing human being. And being human means being imperfect, uncertain, and incomplete. That's not a bug. That's a feature. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not the future version of yourself, not who you'll be when you finally get your life together. The present, right now, this moment, this breath, this version of you with all your flaws and fears and unfinished business. Because this is all there is, this moment. And in this moment, you are enough." Let me say that again, because it's important. You are enough. Not when you lose the weight, not when you get the promotion, not when you finally master meditation or wake up at 5 a.m. or read 50 books a year. Right now, as you are enough. This doesn't mean you can't grow or change. It means your growth doesn't determine your worth. Your worth is inherent. It's not something you earn or achieve. It's something you already have, simply by being alive. Epictetus taught his students to distinguish between what's in their control and what isn't. You can't control whether you're naturally talented or intelligent or attractive. You can't control your past or your circumstances, but you can control your judgments, your responses, your character. And here's the key. Your character isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest, present, and kind to others and to yourself. Let's talk about what acceptance actually means, because it's often misunderstood. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It doesn't mean giving up or settling or refusing to grow. It means acknowledging reality as it is, without adding layers of judgment and resistance. When you accept yourself, you're not saying, "I'm perfect and I never need to change." You're saying, "I'm human and that's okay." You're releasing the exhausting burden of constantly fighting against who you are. Think about it this way. A tree doesn't try to be a better tree. It doesn't compare itself to other trees or stress about whether it's growing fast enough. It simply grows according to its nature, responding to the conditions around it. Some years it grows more, some years less. Some branches flourish, others fall away. But the tree never doubts its fundamental treeness. You are already whole, not broken, not deficient, not lacking, whole. The Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron says, "The most fundamental aggression to ourselves, the most fundamental harm we can do to ourselves, is to remain ignorant by not having the courage and respect to look at ourselves honestly and gently." Notice that word, gently. Looking at yourself honestly doesn't mean harsh self-criticism. It means seeing yourself clearly, with compassion. What would change if you approached yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend? If you spoke to yourself the way you'd speak to someone you love? Most of us would never talk to a friend the way we talk to ourselves. We wouldn't say, "You're so lazy. You're not good enough. You'll never figure this out. Everyone else has it together except you." But we say these things to ourselves constantly. We've internalized the voice of the self-improvement industry, the voice that says we're always falling short. What if we put that voice down? I'm curious about your experience with this. Have you noticed the way you talk to yourself? Does it sound like a friend or a critic? Share your thoughts in the comments. These reflections help all of us become more aware. Here's another insight from the Stoics. Progress doesn't always mean motion. Sometimes progress means stillness. Sometimes it means stopping, resting, being. We live in a culture that glorifies hustle, that treats rest as laziness, that measures worth by productivity. But the ancient philosophers knew better. Seneca wrote, "The mind must be given relaxation. It will rise improved and sharper after a good break." Even 2,000 years ago, they understood that constant striving leads to burnout, not enlightenment. The Taoists took this even further. The concept of Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action or non-doing, suggests that the most effective action comes from alignment with natural flow, not from force. It's like swimming with the current instead of against it. You're still moving, still acting, but without the exhausting resistance. Imagine approaching your life this way, not constantly pushing, striving, forcing yourself to be different, but moving with your natural rhythms, honoring your energy, accepting your limitations. This is where real peace lives, not in achievement, but in acceptance. Not in becoming, but in being. Let's address a common concern. Doesn't acceptance lead to complacency? If you accept yourself as you are, won't you just stop growing? The answer is no, and the ancient wisdom traditions prove it. The Stoics were some of the most accomplished people in history. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor. Seneca was a playwright and advisor to Nero. Epictetus founded a school that influenced philosophy for centuries. They weren't complacent, but their growth came from a place of inner stability, not desperate striving. The Buddha spent years seeking enlightenment through extreme asceticism, nearly starving himself to death. It wasn't until he stopped, accepted nourishment, and sat peacefully under a tree that he found what he was looking for. His greatest achievement came through acceptance, not striving. When you accept yourself, you're not giving up. You're giving yourself permission to grow from a place of wholeness rather than lack. You're no longer trying to fix yourself because you're broken. You're simply exploring what's possible because you're curious, because you're alive, because growth is part of being human. There's a huge difference between these two motivations. One is driven by fear and inadequacy. The other is driven by love and curiosity. One is exhausting. The other is energizing. Peace begins where striving ends. That doesn't mean effort ends. It means the desperate, anxious, never enough quality of striving ends. You can still work hard, pursue goals, and challenge yourself. But you do it from a place of sufficiency, not scarcity. So what does this look like in practice? How do you actually live this way in a world that constantly tells you to be more, do more, achieve more? Here are a few perspectives that might help. First, practice awareness without judgment. Notice when you're being harsh with yourself. Notice when you're comparing yourself to others. Notice when you're treating yourself as a problem to be solved. You don't have to change these patterns immediately. Just notice them. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. Second, question the shoulds. Every time you think, I should be more productive, or I should be further along by now, ask yourself, according to whom? Who decided this timeline? Who set these standards? Often, we're following rules we never consciously chose. Third, embrace the Stoic practice of negative visualization. Instead of always imagining how things could be better, occasionally imagine how they could be worse. This isn't pessimism, it's perspective. It helps you appreciate what you already have, including who you already are. Fourth, cultivate gratitude for the present moment. Not for what the present moment might lead to, but for what it is right now. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. Not just accepting what is, but loving it, embracing it fully. Fifth, remember that you're not your thoughts. Buddhist meditation teaches this beautifully. You can observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. When the thought, I'm not good enough, arises, you can notice it, acknowledge it, and let it pass, like a cloud moving across the sky. Sixth, redefine success. What if success isn't about achievement, but about peace? What if it's not about becoming someone else, but about being fully yourself? What if the goal isn't to be perfect, but to be present? These aren't quick fixes. They're not life hacks. They're practices, ways of being that develop over time. And that's okay, because you're not in a race. You're not behind. You're exactly where you need to be. Let me share something personal. I've spent years caught in the self-improvement trap, reading every book, trying every technique, constantly measuring myself against some imaginary standard of who I should be. And you know what I learned? The more I tried to fix myself, the more broken I felt. The more I chased peace, the more elusive it became. It wasn't until I stopped, really stopped, that things shifted. Not because I gave up on growth, but because I gave up on the belief that I was fundamentally flawed. I started treating myself like someone worthy of kindness, not someone who needed to earn it. And paradoxically, that's when real growth became possible. Not forced growth, not anxious striving, but organic unfolding. Like a flower opening because it's ready, not because someone's pulling the petals apart. You might be experiencing something similar. You might be tired of the constant pressure to be better, to do more, to optimize every aspect of your life. If so, I want you to know, it's okay to rest. It's okay to be where you are. It's okay to be human. What's your relationship with self-improvement? Has it been helpful, or has it sometimes felt like another source of pressure? I'd genuinely love to hear your perspective in the comments. Your experience matters, and sharing it might help someone else feel less alone. Here's a final thought from Marcus Aurelius. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Not in your achievements, not in your productivity, not in becoming someone else. In your way of thinking, in how you relate to yourself and your life right now. The self-improvement industry wants you to believe that happiness is always just one more purchase, one more course, one more transformation away. But the ancient philosophers knew better. Happiness isn't something you achieve. It's something you allow. You allow it by accepting yourself, by being present, by releasing the exhausting burden of constant striving, by recognizing that you're already enough right now, in this moment. This doesn't mean life will be perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never struggle or feel pain or want things to be different. Being human means experiencing the full range of emotions, including difficult ones. But you can experience all of that without the added layer of self-rejection, without the constant voice saying you're not good enough. You are good enough. You always have been. The myth of self-improvement is that you're broken and need fixing. The truth is that you're whole and always have been. You might grow, change, evolve. That's natural. But your worth isn't conditional on that growth. Your worth is inherent. Progress doesn't always mean motion. Sometimes it means stillness. Sometimes it means accepting where you are. Sometimes it means recognizing that the peace you've been seeking through endless self-improvement has been available all along, waiting for you to stop running and simply be. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this time to reflect, to question, to explore these ideas together. As we approach 200 subscribers, I'm reminded that this channel isn't just about numbers. It's about community. It's about creating a space where we can slow down, think deeply, and remember what really matters. If this resonated with you, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe and join us on this journey. Every subscriber truly fuels this channel and helps spread these ideas further. Not because I need validation, but because I believe these conversations matter. In a world that's constantly pushing us to be more, do more, achieve more, we need spaces that remind us we're already enough. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who's tired of the self-improvement treadmill. Someone who's ready to stop fighting against themselves and start living from a place of acceptance. Remember, you can't fix what was never broken. And you were never broken. You're human. Beautifully and imperfectly human. And that's not just okay. It's exactly as it should be. Peace begins where striving ends. And peace is available to you right now, in this moment, exactly as you are. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You're doing better than you think.